So we're ready to go?
Yeah, we are live.
All right. Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to everyone present here and welcome to the finale of Ethos Trophy 2021-2022. As you all know, this trophy is a collaboration between NASA India, the largest association of students of architecture in the country, and Team Ethos. And thank you so much to Professor Shekhar and Rasya for being part of the jury today, as well as all the NASA Council members and the finalists for making it this far with their wonderful work, and all the audience who are either here to cheer up their college or to get inspired. Whatever the reasons be, we welcome you all. So let me quickly begin with an introduction to Ethos and what we've been up to so far. I think my sound might be off. Sorry, I'll just do it with my sound. So a lot of you might already be familiar with what Ethos does. It was founded in 2002 by architect Geeta Balakrishnan. And since then, we've come a long way, supporting students of architecture and design in their progress, in their careers and professional development. So Ethos Trophy was started a few years ago, and the focus is to celebrate not only the academic excellence as well as the extracurricular work of students and recognize a star in the making. So we're looking at finding people who are going to be sensitive professionals of the future. So about the timeline, the brief was released in mid-November and the registration was open until the mid of January. People could submit their entries until the end of January. That was stage one. And then the stage one entries were sent to the jury members for them to grade the entries and come at the top five. Based on the top five received from different jury members, we've narrowed it down to the top five finalists who will be presenting live today, as we all know. Eligibility, the contest is open to all undergraduate students of architecture and design from colleges associated with NASA. So, you have to be a NASA affiliated college for the student to take part in. So we received over 370 registrations this year, and 66 different colleges took part in the trophy. We have the evaluation criteria as on my screen. We can see that we're not only talking about the end product here, but also the design process has the maximum weightage, that's 40%, as well as weightage is given to co-curricular activities, articulation and presentation skills, allied skills, the first impression, which is often the last impression, and the technical skills that one can see in the work displayed by the students. So tangibles is something very clear that we'll be able to see very clearly through the visual representations in the portfolio. Intangibles is something which I request the jury member to dive deeper, ask relevant questions to the students after their presentations, and try to find answers to how they are nurturing their sensitivity towards environment, community, socioeconomic factors, their choice of colors and materials, a response to climates, and the different values one can find hidden in their design and design process journey. The Ethos Trophy gives out one citation per year. So we'll be looking at the third year category today. So the aim is to arrive at one citation award amongst the five finalists. And the rolling trophy is awarded to the college that has the maximum winning entries consecutively for the 4 years. So that's that.
Sorry to interrupt. Sheetal ma'am is also here.
All right, sure. 1 second, I just refresh this. Yeah. Yeah. So just for the sake of transparency and making sure that participants present in a random order and there's no bias in picking out the entries, we follow this wheel of fortune, where it's just like tossing coins to figure out who presents first and who goes last. So yeah, just that, so that the participants here know that everything is transparent and everyone has a equal footing. I welcome on board our esteemed jury panel, architect Sheetal Rakheja. She's a graduate from Sushant School of Art and Architecture and an accredited green building professional, chair of IGBC Delhi chapter, as well as a member of the IGBC Executive Committee. She has worked extensively in designing and promoting green buildings. She is also a president of Wiki, Architectural Council UP chapter. She's been a convener for the material chapter of the new sustainability of the National Building Code and has an experience of over 2 decades, having designed over 100 projects covering a staggering 50 million square feet of built space. Her projects have set a benchmark in energy efficiency in the industry. Thank you so much for accepting our invite and being present today. Architect Shekhar Garur. He completed his BArch in 1984 from SPA New Delhi and is an associate member of the IIA Mumbai chapter and life member of Institute of Valuers New Delhi, ex-partner at Narendra Ringle and Associates in Pune. He's presently an associate professor and a leading academician at VIT PVP College of Architecture in Pune, involved in developing strategies and solutions for tracking each student's academic growth for the larger benefit of the institute. We've collaborated on several fronts with his students, doing marvels at different competitions, and him being an active academic member of the ACED fraternity. Thank you for being here and putting in your time and efforts, Architect Shekhar Garur. We also have with us Architect Rasya Kumar, who's a recent graduate in resilient and sustainable strategies from KU Leuven University in Belgium. Prior to that, she's worked for 3 years in India and also quite a few years in Belgium with her bachelor's degree in architecture from Pune. Her approach towards architecture and design has always been minimal and in fact questions the very need to build, which works in contradiction with her qualifications. But I think at some point we all do question that. So during her studies in Belgium, her primary intent has been to understand the perception of sustainability across the world. She learned from her teachers and peers coming from 20 different countries and loves sharing her experience with those looking forward to study abroad. Thanks, Rasya, for being part of the jury today. The agenda is going to be as follows. We begin with the first presentation, number 33, and followed by 4 others. Each student has 10 minutes to present. At the 8th minute, you will hear a buzzer sound from my team, which is a warning that you have just 2 more minutes left. So you wrap up your presentation accordingly. After each presentation, the jury can ask their questions, give feedback and comments for up to 5 minutes before we move on to the next one. And towards the end, we'll have a jury deliberation to arrive at the results, and the deliberation will be not broadcasted. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screens. All the best to all the finalists, and hope number 33, you are ready.
Yes. Is it visible?
It's loading. Give it a few seconds. It is.
Yeah.
You can go full screen now.
I hereby present my curation of work, my journey in between through architecture, nature, and the culture of the human society. I believe that idea behind the architecture is interdependent on the human, the built environment, and the nature. The first one is the social reform village, ashram, the redressing the Lord's path of the path. That's semester 6. We believe in the democratical world where the people divided by the caste, language, color, gender, etc., which is not Gandhian democracy, but the social democracy empowers that it means the way of life recognized by the liberty, equality, and the fraternity as a principle of life. the question that comes to the mind, what we can do. So idea is to follow the Gandhian philosophy by adapting the deep understanding of his idea and principles, keeping the mind as a soul. The idea is to create a social reform village just in the urban fabric, which acts as a transitional threshold between the same. Also communal country like India, it is very essential to have space that can stand for the people. The human center is the concept to show sense and sensitivity to the needed people. The site is located in the Sabarmati River, surrounded by the Sabarmati Ashram, the area known as Ashram Road. Understanding of the contextual evolution from the pre-independence to the today's time. From that, understanding the how space evolves. And other than that, understanding the surrounded built environment, relation with the nature and the human beings. And analyze the other analytical aspects of the context. After that, the process starts. First, I identify all the building on the site and identify the unused building spaces, open spaces, and identify the spots where I can plug in the new intervention. And other than that, to conserve the unused building spaces, and add the new function into that. And increasing the sufficiency of the usable spaces. And after all of that, not directly jump to the design, but understand the Gandhi, the idea of spaces like Sadgi, Satya, Swadhin, Sadbuddhi, etc., etc. And before the design, I understood the nature of the space, where the first that indoor-outdoor space relationship with the wall, and other than that, I understood how the social space become a more social. For us, the tree is a social space. And intervention surrounded the tree become a more social. And the last one was the built space connects with the nature, and just making a plinth, that plinth become a social space. And all the things I understood from the Kala Bhavan, the heart of Santiniketan, the space design on ideology of the Rabindranath Tagore. And after that, again come to the context, where how the important surrounded context is, because the context has a rich heritage, the context has a cultural heritage, and the context has a modern heritage. So it is our responsibility to not harm the heritage by the intervention. For the intervention, the first question was how beautiful a wall can be. So first I created one wall, but the wall was a very static. So I break down the staticness of the wall by adding the 3 dots of the one side and adding the inverted arch and opening, and place the two walls parallelly, and the space become and just the space that represent the Gandhian philosophy of simplicity. The last few words for the wall. Everyone can see, let's everyone can hide, let's lights come and dance, and let's wind comes and sing. And after that, lot of iteration try to create serenity, calmness, and the peaceful environment within the social reform village. And I believe the space is always stand for the human. And all of that, I come to the master plan that cut from the 1.5 meter level, and the section cut from the center of the campus. And then first I define the journey of the campus, the whole campus. So this was the main circulation, and add the intervention in between the pathways, and the yellow one was the secondary circulation, and after that define the edge of the campus. The journey of the campus, where every space represents the ideas of Gandhi, and entrance of the campus place the northwest side, and the entrance represent the idea of the Sanskruti. For my understanding, I try to capture 2 kinds of views. The first one was the black and white view, that from that I understood the simplicity of the space, and adding the color into the space, and understood the relationship of the nature and the human beings. And come to for every space like pathways, open spaces, build spaces, I try to create add the ideas of social spaces and create a journey within the campus. The pathway lead us to the first intervention, and pathway integrated the idea of the Gandhi. The first intervention was the art and crafts center just beside the existing structure, and some of the views of the art and crafts center. And another side, the second intervention, the resource center, that also connects the existing structure and that enclosed with the social space. And other than that, open spaces where include the Gandhian philosophy in front of the school ground. There is a small open classroom, and the wall of democracy, and the court of wall of democracy, where the people gather and see the idea of democracy. In the center of the campus, there is the last intervention, the admin block, and for just making a walls and wall become a space. That is my idea of the space. coming to the other side of the campus where the most of the build spaces and the was existing one. So here I try to extend the plinth of the existing build spaces and to conserve the building, the build spaces and enclose with the social spaces. Here was the workshop area that this was the existing blocks, and I try to conserve that existing block and add to new function into that space. These are the views of the workshop area. And the court of Sadgit that enclosed by the workshop area and existing Kalamkruz Handmade Paper Center. Dhyan Mandir, the space for the meditation that connects with the school and residential part, and other than that, urban age. Isometric view to understand how all the ideas of the Gandhi and connects to the each other. And try to add the best and the construction technique. For the material and construction technique, I used brick and wood and clay that locally available and participatory approach for the construction process. Try to add the passive cooling technique within the intervention and physical model to understand the scale of the space and how space connect with the human nature. And the whole idea to create a journey within the throughout the campus that connect the Gandhian ideology in modern era. The people, architecture, and the space are simple, suitable, and harmonious with life. The second was the Holocaust Museum, the experiential journey, the semester 5 project, the rethinking the idea of memorialization, that creating the experiential journey within the museum, the reconnecting the past through the varied space and experience. The site is located in the Berlin. The existing land parcel consists with the Holocaust Museum designed by Daniel Libeskind. And the idea was to create a museum looks to creating the experiential space for the individual to reconnect and re-evaluate at a personal and the social level. The idea of the space comes from the caves, where we can enter the small to big space, through darkness to enlightenment. And then after the process, the first one, the identifying the nodes, creating the edges, creating the entrance of the project, and connecting the whole the site. So the space achieving the identifying the Jewish community and the entire scenario of Holocaust. That comes to the plan whole museum design in underground for the experience, creating the experience. That comes to the entrance where the colorful wall and light that depict how the community was reached. And after that, coming to the second space, the large dome, representing the culture of the community. And then after coming to the third one, that experience the path of darkness. And then we coming to the main exhibition space. And then after coming to the hall of light that represent the hope for the human beings. And going to the hall of light, from the hall of light, and coming to the hall of voice, that the various voids represent the idea of the community as a whole. And coming to the upper side, there was the last. So this event never forgotten in a history of the humankind. And after that, coming to the working design studio, where I explore the material like bricks and exposed concrete. And other than that, the product design subject, the first I identified the need of the today's time. So I come to the conclusion the toilet and water is a basic need. And in the rural area, we can't have this kind of facility. So idea was to create a modular toilet for them. And the last one was the landscape design studio, where I can understand how the landscape connects with the relation with the nature, how the build space relation with the nature, and how sound of birds, water, and the smell of flowers creating serenity, spaceful environment within the space. And the extracurricular activities, where the redefining the slope, the exploring urban voids with the photographs, and the reimaging the monuments in the modern time, and the flexipod for our campus, and the illusion of the paintings. That is all the extracurricular activities. And the last, for me, architecture is a living entity. For me, architecture is in a search. Thank you.
Thank you, 33. Very much completed in time. So good job on that front. I'll let the jury panel now give their comments and ask any questions that they might have for you.
One second.
Professor Shekhar, would you want to go first? You're on mute, I think.
We call them by their entry number 33?
Yes, they are number 33, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Okay, number 33. You know, your narration was quite fluent. But in the beginning, you mentioned one word which I thought it was a little odd. You said India is a communal country. Why did you say so?
For the second, which one?
No.
Yeah.
This is during in your narration of the
Yeah.
first project.
Yeah.
You said India is a communal country.
Okay.
You are talking about that Gandhian values and
Yeah.
all. You said India is a communal country. What exactly do you mean by communal country? Because I find that word little, I don't know whether you mentioned it
I
out of
just
your
define
innocence or
no. For me, communal is like diverse community live in the same region. So that's why.
Okay, okay, fine. And this Holocaust Museum was the site was in the Berlin.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
this time we are our all the college online process.
Online.
So we can select any of the site. So our faculties was given us to that Berlin site.
Okay, that's nice. And tell me something about your hobbies. You what in your extracurricular activities, what you have mentioned are all done in your college. Apart from college, what do you do?
Apart from the college, I like to travel lots of. So right now I am in Pune. Basically, I am from Surat. So I like to travel and explore the spaces more.
Okay. Over to other jury members, please.
I think it was a rather crisp presentation, and I really like how even in your social reform village, you had this kind of intermingling of the built and open spaces, felt very balanced. And was your landscape design also linked to the same one, or was it an altogether separate?
No, that is separate studio.
That's
so for landscape design, we have to design landscape for our semester 3 project. That was the residential project.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I understand. But still, I see that in terms of how you bring the landscape in, there was that connect, which is nice. And I also felt that overall, yes, in the first project, you had a very interesting presentation, and also like how you try to bring things like Swadhin, Samriddhi, Shanti, and all of these principles as parts of your master plan, which is, I think, a great way of looking at build spaces and master planning in general as more experiential than programmatic. So well done. Good luck.
Thank you.
Architect Sheetal, over to you.
Yeah, hi. I really like how you have amalgamated the built and the unbuilt together. A lot of importance to nature, which is essential. And I like this project, which is on the screen right now, that, how these different landscape plants and trees, how important they are. Smell, touch, textures, they play an important role in your unbuilt in the built form and how these amalgamate it. I think it's a good work.
So thanks, number 33. All the best. Yeah. And with that, we'll move on to the next presentation of the day, which is number 189. I hope you're ready.
33, you may leave the room.
Yeah. Uh, 189, you can begin sharing your screen.
Is my screen visible?
It is.
Yes, it is.
Dive in.
Hello, very good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to start the presentation by raising the very first question, that what does the architectural spaces means to us? What does this mean? Meaning, like, what does the spaces, do we need to stay in a spaces which is a repetition of houses to live in, or a space where we can feel lively and at home? So architectural spaces have a certain atmosphere that influences the emotional state of a person, and a building can have the potential to be a piece of artwork that can inspire and uplift the society. For me, architecture tells us a story. Now, can there be a possibility of story without emotions? I believe stories with emotions makes us a human. I have proposed a design for a performing arts institute in Colombo in semester 6, which will not only consist of academic block but also a performance block. Before moving forward with the ideation process and answering the questions from the first slide, I would like to introduce you to the Kalamboli site, which is 30 minutes away from the Khandeshwar railway station. And the site of 11,265 square meter is surrounded by hospitals, residentials, commercial spaces, and a library right behind the site. The site has a 20-meter wide road running along the site. In front, there is a 7.5-meter road running parallel to the east side of the site, which can be seen through the side section, and it has a lesser traffic congestion. It has a good connectivity from all the side, whereas illegal trucks parked on the back of the site creates noise or dust with no proper vegetation. Now, Taloja being a part of the industrial area and 30 minutes away from the Kalamboli site can create a threat for the air pollution. So what are the opportunities that can be created through this is building nowadays resembles products rather than the creation of our society. So when architecture can connect emotionally with its occupants, its message and its meaning can be felt more deeply, thus more readily leaving a lasting impression. Hence, there is a need for interaction between the environment and occupants, which makes the space alive. Coming back to the question of how will the institute connect the occupants emotionally and as a story. So emotions as a navras can play a vital role in one's life. Now talking about Shringhara, love, beauty, can we make a space that is visually attractive yet fulfills all the demands of the buildings? Shanta is tranquility or peace. Can we achieve a peace in our design by creating a simple space that calms one's mind? Hasya consists of cafeteria and canteen, and so are the rest emotions. When talking about circulation pattern, the form was achieved to active circulation, keeping in mind the pockets that will help in bringing the natural ventilation and lighting, where one cuboid is replicated and is stacked, making a 3-layer of performance and academic block with green pocket which will be added in the design. Leading forward for cantilever spaces for different experiences and visual communication with natural lighting, enhancing each space. So alternative cantilever options were looked at before finalizing the ones, and the spaces are connected visually and acoustically, enhancing interaction at different levels. This leads us to the main aim of our project with programs. An institute that is socially connected and has a movemental impact on emotions. A space that has a social connection with open spaces and an environment that will act as a bridge between performance and also learning. The direction of the sun from east to south to west helps determining open spaces which will come to use the sunlight to its full potential, where learning and performance spaces are weaved together. There are 2 entries for academics and performance block from with one exit on the west side of the site. As we go inside the site, we can witness the shower of the natural light right in a dramatic open space with green pockets which will help bring students together. Being a performing arts institute with open planning on the stilled floor can help students bring out their emotions, where they can discuss activities like dance, music. Courtyards are bright open areas which are designed to invite sunlight and which can rejuvenate humans and plants alike. The whole planning is divided into 2 different blocks. There is a performance block and the academic block. So one reaches the first floor using the steps and the ramps from front entrance and covers the admin area. And for the performance block, one can enter from the backside, which is first towards the security check and gets enters to the exhibition center or the auditorium. The second floor plan here takes us through the green pockets that is standing in between the classrooms and acting as a much needed buffer space for students. The space can act as a casual function or exhibition space. Now, this takes us to the studios that are over here, which has a diffuse light coming through the terracotta panels, plays with the floor pattern and also which ends the route towards the library. The third floor plan is a replicate of the second floor plan, only with the extra character of sports area included. Over here, section talks us through the vertical emotions which created by each student and faculties, which helps bring all spaces together. I've seen classes on the second and third floor, and a casual meeting on the stilled floor brings together all the activities and makes the space to its true form. The second section, focusing on the Performing Arts Center, takes us through passages, balcony, and enhancing the visual communication. Talking about the section, the next step of details help me understand the use of traditional and also the local methods and the new technology. If weaved together, can bring the best out of the whole site. The use of vegetation was used according to its characteristic feature, which helps the site refreshed all the time. By in traditional formats, the use of solar panels helps the building being self-sufficient and also sustainable. The total of 85 350 solar watt panels are provided on the south side of the building, which uses the sun to its potential. The play of shadow with the panels or the view from the corridor, each has its sense of place and has an important role to play in the structure. Now, to answer the first question from the presentation, where structure helps us creating a story as well as in evoking emotions that will be different for different perspectives. The explorative view talks us about various activities happening on each of the floor, where each unit acts independently and when looked from outside can bring the whole site together. All of the views here talks about how exterior and interior spaces, when viewed together, can create a story for oneself and when leaving the campus for the others. Using architectural qualities like materiality, light, flora, fauna, and also sound, I have tried to create an architecture journey where the narrative pushes and pulls at different emotions. In other words, I've tried to tell a story with work using different architectural characteristics, like where emotions can trigger if the design concepts and with occupants. That's what I tried to attempt here. The next project was working drawing in a skill development center. That was semester 5 design. So the objective of the project was to design a skill development center for a pottery industry, keeping in mind the process of workflow for every pottery industry and understanding how the structure we built in real on the site. Learning different details necessary for the design, figuring out parts and part sections and smallest details for the building. Moving on towards the extracurricular activities, that is the best from West. Last year, I had the opportunity to reconsider everything, including how we used to interact with our environment and how we do so now. Creating a peaceful nook on my balcony using leftover sunboards, bottles, papers, and this is how the place looks during the day and the night time. And the same leaf that has been used for the balconies, where then from single piece of paper, I had turned that into a frame, which is right now in my kitchen. And taking small ice cream sticks and painting the beautiful view that I can see from my balcony. And creating small frames to give my loved ones. These frames were also made from the sunboards and one-sided used paper, which I use in my second year model making. Moving ahead, the art on play. So, and it's not about just bringing art on the design, but it was also a food adventure during the past year, exploring and experimenting the art on the whole plate and capturing stories and through one size. Here are a few illustrations to give my loved one for different occasions. With all this, sports has always been my first express of emotions. These are the few of the competitions pre-COVID I have won. So I have won abacus, doing sea swimming in the Arabian Sea competition for badminton, chess, etc. And the love to travel places has never left my side. So including Gujarat, Bihar, Odisha, Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, etc. And right now it's like exploring different places. And after all this, I wish to resume all the activities of hopping to different places, sports soon. Hence, right now I'm in a stage of to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you, 189. Well on time. And thanks for showing this wonderful portfolio. Over to the jury panel for their feedback and questions.
Yes, 189, very interesting work. I especially like your best from West projects rather than usual architectural projects. Because they are there, one works through them because one has to as a part of the curriculum. But beyond those architectural projects that you do in the studios, what you do on your own is actually where your learnings are. And I'm very happy to see that you are sports enthusiast also. You said you play badminton, swimming, etc. Yeah, okay. There seems to be a little lag from your side. So just show me those last few panels of your presentation. Your own work. I mean, not the architectural work. Just go through them very quickly. Very quickly.
Yeah. Yes. This one is from the balcony of my balcony.
Yes. And in the plate painting, the food is real, no? The food is not painted.
No, it's not painted. It's real.
But the painting beside it is also edible?
the flowers are not edible, but the chocolate that you can see over there, actually
The chocolate and sauces, perhaps. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, keep it up. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Hope to meet you sometime with your painted food. Yeah, over to others.
Yes, number 189. I think it was a great presentation delivery. Firstly, it was easy to connect with you and go through what you were talking about. And like Professor Karul also mentioned, I was also very impressed with what you have done on your own as a practice that, living your belief is I think, a great way, is quite inspiring, and kudos to that. Your architectural design project was also very interesting. I could connect with you when you brought in the Navarasas, and what I would have liked to see further was when you were explaining your floor plans with the requirements and something, and you're talking about a performance center, you're talking about experience. So the overall site experience and talking about, there's a lot of different people coming into a project like that. So if that ground floor started with the whole site itself, would have been even nicer for us to connect with. So otherwise, I think it was great. And I like it that you have diverse interests, and you seem to keep yourself busy at all times. So well done, and yes, good luck.
Thank you.
I think you're just a bundle of creativity and energy. I love the confidence, and I love the small detail that you get into, whether it's the food, whether it's anything that you touch. So that was it's actually inspiring, I would say. And I liked, so besides all of little detail and all this creativity that you put into everything that you touch, even in terms of your architectural design, I felt that you had thought of everything, just like everything was well thought of, circulation, and whether it was the solar panels, whether it was the entries, whether it was amalgamating the site and the built and the unbuilt, all of it. So I think good work, and keep up the energy and the creativity.
Yeah.
Impressive.
She has even created a corner for one, I don't know, one mister with a plate full of painted foods and all. Very nice.
So very creative 189. All the best. You can leave the room now. And I hope number 26 is ready with their presentation.
Yes.
All right. So go right in.
Is my screen visible?
It is. Go full screen. So number 26 on screen now.
Thank you. Surrounded by the dozen, still find myself distance from the ground, lonely left with two colors, shades of black and tints of white left around, waiting for the colorful vibe to connect rest outside the box that sets me free to be me. Warm regards to all the members presented. I am 64, ETH 26. Today, I will take you through my third year of architecture journey. The first project, which was of 6 semesters, is the Art District, a regional art center for the Vadodara city of Gujarat. The brief was to design an art center for the artists as well as the housing for the local community. Starting with the interconnection between artists, users, and architects, a definition of art district has been derived, which is the overall culture of a place and arts had to define and share its identity. The site is located in front of Sursagar Lake of Gujarat. Because of the dense urban footprint of the surrounding area and presence of old heritage building, it was a challenge to develop a very interactive porous urban edge for the local community as an urban insert. So by formulating the question of why, what, how, and whom, the vision has been derived, which is the rejuvenating the lost identity. After that, by understanding the social space, a state of art and urban complexity, the concept has been derived, which is the Chowk, Chauraha, and Chowkhat, where Chowk will act as a social node for the public gathering, Chauraha is a liminal space to restrict the boundary, and Chowkhat is a threshold to make a transitional spaces. Coming to the master plan, it shows the art center on the main road side and the housing units on the left hand side, right hand side. There is a Maharani High School, and there is also a temple complex on the lake edge. So the underground road has been created to connect the site directly to the lake. Then the visual and accessible connection has been established between lakefront and the site. The different entry and exit points are provided as per the need and purposes. Blue highlighted vehicular movement kept on the periphery to get pedestrian-friendly campus. The plan follows a very strong axis lines, and where each axis intersect with each other, that makes a common gathering space act as a chalk. For example, temple front has a floral flooring pattern, which allows the people for large gathering. A rectangular plan of the art center follows a very sharp geometry and allows access from the secondary roads. The main entry opens up into a very granular volume, having an admin department and the temporary exit through the transitional space. Circular platform with water body enclosed by the arcade from all the four slides reflect the glimpse of the Choraha, a traditional Indian architectural element. Then after it leads to the internal courtyard from both the sides by semi-covered passages. From the internal courtyard, different amenities such as workshop area, auditorium, cafeteria, and rehearsal rooms are accessible. This is how the plan follows the hierarchy of Indian architecture, leading from one space to another. To break the mass and larger volume of the ground floor, the different cutouts and open spaces are provided at the upper floor. The semi-open passages and green terraces are created in climate responsive design. From these passages, the different galleries and workshops are accessible. The section shows the higher plane towards the entry side to maintain the contextual response, and it became a very human scale towards the lake side to get a serene view of the lake. Different levels and material have been used to break the monotony and create an interesting volume. The different view shows the glimpse of the overall spaces of the art center. The linear section shows the connectivity within all the three courtyards, and it is how allow the natural ventilation throughout the building. The view shows the different tangential spaces, shows the adapting use of Indian paintings and art form to create a vibrant and colorful spaces. After analyzing the current issues and challenges, the eastern edge has been designed for more people to come together and to enjoy their leisure time in front of iconic Sursagar Lake. The axonometric view shows the various volumes whose scale is varying from humor to grandeur. Overlooking terraces and balcony has been provided to establish visual connection. Balance between open, semi-open, and built spaces have been kept for the better climatic response. This view shows the housing side having a large gathering space in front of artist shops and having which can act as a drop-off and pick-up point for the Maharani High School. So the learning of the project taught me how to deal with the urban complexity and to fulfill the need of the different users at the same time. It has changed my whole perspective toward the Indian architecture element and how it can involve in today's time. It was a very good experience to study those elements and to implement in my, some essence of that in my design. So the another second project, which was of the WD, the brief was to given a set of technical drawings and detail of our residential houses, which plan was given by our faculty members. And the flexibility was given to explore any material or construction technique you wanted to by placing it any suitable region of the India. So I choose the location of Chanikoti in Himachal Pradesh, and limestone masonry has been used, which is also known as a Karthuni architecture style. Working plan has a very typical layout of Himalayan architecture. The wall thickness is about 600 mm, as it is the load-bearing structure. The section shows the foundation plinth, which is of the wall under the ground and make a base for the structure. The sloping roof made out of timber and local stone cladding above it. The elevation shows the alternate layers of timber and stone create a different visual effect. The balconies and railing is completely made out of wooden planks. The casement window has been detailed out with the wooden frame and glass partition. The centrally supported staircase is made out of wooden members. The toilet layout with the detail of sunk slab made out of treated deodar wood, the slate stone, and plastic membrane as a waterproofing material. So availability of advanced construction material and technique resulted in much faster and easier construction. So the traditional technique has started losing their relevance over time. So the learning from the project was a very different in terms of joinery, material uses, and building element, which is the knowledge of the local craftsmanship. By documenting these techniques, we gave them a new importance in this life. The another project, which was a Jewish museum designed by the Daniel Libeskind in 2001. The main aim was to understand and follow the Libeskind's ideology and its principle, and to reinterpret it in our own way by creating various experiential spaces and volumes. The museum should reflect the terrifying event of the Holocaust and to give justify to the Jews by explaining their life story. So Holocaust was a genocide which took place between 1941 to 1945, where the Nazi party murdered some 6 million Jews. So the poem by the Holocaust survival, to explain the terrifying event, we played, we loved, we were loved. We were ripped away from the arms of my parents and thrown into the fire. We were nothing more than the children. We had a future. We had dreams, then we had no hope. We were taken away in the dead of night, like cattle in the car, no air to breathe. Smothering, crying, starving, dying, separated from the world to be no more. Remember us, for we were the children whose dreams were stolen away. So the process started with the understanding the word empathy to create an emptiness. The concept was from the theory of expressionism, which is a modernistic movement took place in the early 20th century in the Germany. There are three types of experiences: facial expression, hand movement, and mental expression. To portray different expression through the species, this emotion has been analyzed, depicting the story of Jews in the Nazi camp. The plan lies on the triangular side and is an extension of the old museum built during the 60th century. At the ground level, two different building blocks connected with the central landscape. The straight line kept as a line of the Holocaust, and the angular line depicts the Judaism. The multi-level landscape kept as an outdoor experiential space. The section shows the connection of two different blocks from the basement floor. The all floor plan on the both the basement plan have a different galleries and auditorium. On the first floor plan, there is a large gathering hall and the museum shop, and the second plan has a library and auditorium. The isometric view shows the horizontal spread of the museum, very grounded in nature, by maintaining the legacy of the heritage museum and creating its own identity. The main entrance view shows the dark blue broken wall, reflect the essence of Berlin Wall. The outdoor display has been provided so the building can speak out the event and its impact, create a scene of death. Angular windows and strips have been used to break the monolithic surface. Sharp geometry of the openings will create a strong impression of the building. The gallery of disorientation. Conceptual sketches are made to understand this word, and inspiration was taken from the uniform of the Jews at the concentration camp. Spiral flooring pattern with the mirror ceiling reflect the multiple times an illusion, disoriented, visited, and create a sense of guilt. The conceptual sketch of Gallery of Fear is implemented in the Garden of Exile as an outdoor multi-level landscape. Zigzag ramp passing beneath the tilted column gives a glimpse of discomfortment and experience of the unbalanced life of the Jewish people. The central double-heighted passage with the sharp red light above it creates a sense of loneliness, and large volume present the emptiness. The Tower of Hope has been designed with the multiple staircases and skyline on the top of it to end the journey with the positive impression. After this project, Daniel Libeskind became one of my favorite ideal. His way of thinking and to show the sensitivity towards such terrifying event through the quality of space has fascinated me. It is one of my favorite projects. I learned a lot through this semester, and I changed my whole perspective to analyze historical events such as this. Now coming to my own creativity and collection of my best work of extracurricular activity. The illustration shows the carving detail of the Hawa Mahal. These are the graphics, painting, sketches, which I made apart from the academic work, and which shows my interest in different field and portray my personality. Every work has a different way of thinking and different understanding behind it. So I would like to conclude my journey with a very famous quote by the A.R. Rahman. The power to achieve harmony is not only in any one person. The power is when all of us come together. Thank you to all the persons who has contributed for me to make me a better personality and sensible human being and made my life rhythmic. I feel my future belongs to more curious, and I'm very much excited for the journey ahead and aiming to explore my abilities to the best potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much, 26. Over to the panel.
Yeah, Mr. 26, all our best wishes are with you for your exciting journey ahead.
Thank you, sir.
What I really liked is that you are somewhere exploring the art of or the technique of miniature paintings into anything that you any kind of a project that you come by, even if it is dry project like making a working drawing, you are converting it into some kind of a painting exercise. That was really very much appreciated. So I hope you will keep this interest alive in your journey ahead into these subtle shades of colors, but very expressive without going overboard with the strong colors and gimmicks with the colors. Very nice. And another thing that I liked very much is that at the end of every project, you are doing a self-analysis and coming up with what is called as a learning, and the learning that is presented in a capsule. So quite impressive amount of work, and my best wishes.
Thank you, sir.
Indeed, Mr. 26, as Professor Garud said, this is, this is a very fresh perspective to look at. Your art center looks like art. your work always looks like art, and it was a pleasure going through that. And it's wonderful to see you actually going back and reflecting on the learnings after every single project. Um, and even for the last project that you presented about the Holocaust Museum, how you try to use your sketches and go into the details of experience, torture, and thereby trying to reflect those emotions through architecture is really setting a great bar. And it was an absolute pleasure listening to you. Good luck.
I love the detailing. I love how every piece every piece of architecture is actually art for you. I love the colors, the blend of colors, and even thought of every material in the building, the detail, the material. I think very impressive work.
Thank you, ma'am.
So lots of appreciation your way, number 26, and we wish you all the best. You can leave the room now, and I'll invite the fourth presenter of the day, that's 166, to come on screen.
A very good afternoon to everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, you can go full screen and dive right in. All the best.
Yeah. So one second, ma'am. I think
We were able to see your screen.
yeah, I'm sharing now.
All right, so time begins now.
So in my architectural journey till now, I have always observed like how people from different walks of life they coexist together in a particular space, and also the functionality of that space is defined by who the user group will be. Also, the society that we dwell in, one can always observe that there is a stringent boundary between different classes of people. The architecture for them is defined by either their financial status or by their societal status. But I believe that architecture is free from all forms of physical, social, and mental boundaries. It offers acceptance to all. This is the belief that I came with in my third year. Even the graphic on this cover page shows the same, like the multiplicity of a simple staircase and how it is used in different ways by different user groups and intangibles. Moving on, so our third year was divided into 2 semesters. In the first semester, we as a class participated in the Solar Decathlon India competition, where our class was divided into groups and we had to create a sustainable architecture. So we worked on an integrated township project. In this, our group had to do the group housing part of the township. So this is the first project, Abode 44. It was like a social experiment for all the communities. The aim was to design a social housing which promotes a sense of community living and a self-sufficient microcosm through two things. One is the hierarchical development of functions at the building level, and second is the shared facilities at the neighborhood level. Uh, so in my design intent again represents my same belief, like the creation of housing clusters which caters to the mixed income groups and people from different walks of life who will have the shared community spaces not only at the ground level or at the neighborhood level but also vertically in the form of double height terraces and gardens which increase interaction among the residents. So this was the very first initial sketch that I came up with, where this is the central green spine and the housing clusters are created along it, along with the creation of these interesting terraces, which can be used by residents in various forms. So this is a photo montage which shows the context and the user group. The site was located in GT Road, Manavla, adjoining the DPS school in Amritsar, Punjab. The site area was around 3 lakh square meters. It was a 75-acre site, and the housing part of it was around 1 lakh square meters. The site was an agricultural field which had boreholes, already existing revenue roads which we could not interfere with, and also the khals which ran along the side boundaries, and they were also to be protected. So there were a lot of stringent boundaries that we had to follow. So by the end of the 5th semester, we came up with this township plan in which the main entrance to this township was through this Amritsar Taran highway. A commercial space was placed at the entrance with the healthcare and the educational institute in the center, so that there is an easy accessibility to all the residents of the community. And towards the next semester, we had to choose a precinct level plan so that we could do a further design development. So the precinct level plan that I chose was the southern flatted housing, because it had the presence of different types of housing clusters, and it also had a very interesting thing going on, that was the hierarchical relationship between the different types of the green spaces, from the central green belt to the sunken courtyards to various scoops and terraces that were formed in the individual buildings. Uh, then to address the nature of this urban setting, I also created a seamless connection of the built with the nature. There were continuous green spaces with adequate weaving of built-in green that was provided at various levels. Uh, in this, there were 3 systems that I used. One was a system of circulation through the pedestrian walkways. Second was a system of open spaces. And third was a system of visual connection, which gives the community a unique identity. So this is the final site plan of my 2 housing clusters. This was the first housing cluster and the second housing cluster, in which the sunken courtyard in the middle has an equal share between the neighborhood greens, which could be used as play areas, and also a reed bed system in the center. So my intent of providing this was, in order to promote sustainability in the township, I use the centralized services like the wetland system, which is also one of the major feature of my site. So this wetland system is divided into 2 parts. One is the reed bed system, which is there in between these courtyards of the housing. And second is the polishing pond, which runs along the central green spine. And this polishing pond is further landscaped with the different types of trees, bioswales, the elevated cycle track loop, which runs all around it. After creating this, I note there was a interesting hierarchy of the green spaces that was happening. One was the system of open spaces, which starts from the central green spine as visible in this view. It comprises the polishing pond, the riparian walkway. This hierarchy then finds its way in the courtyards, which were being formed in the within these housing clusters. The courtyards were divided equally to support either the play areas and the neighborhood greens, and also the reed bed system for the wetland. The hierarchy then also extends to the small double height terraces that are created in between these housing blocks, which could either be used as refuge areas or as mm, community function spaces for the residents. Then these are some of the side sections. This is a section which passes through that reed bed system, in which all of these terraces, all of these ground is terraced in the form so that it slopes down towards this polishing pond. This shows the cycle track loop which runs along it, and also the bioswale which could be used for the stormwater management. I am also interested into landscape a little. Therefore, I studied trees and how and where different types of trees could be placed. So I decided to place the native big green trees having very dense foliage along the road edge and the side boundary, giving a firm edge to the entire township. And also the native or the medium-sized trees are then planted in the central courtyard and along the play areas and around the polishing pond. So these are different sketches for my landscape design concept. This is the sketch for a riparian walkway that will run along the central green features, the bioswales and the biopurification terraces. Uh, this is the concept for the wetland, how the different uh, discharge points and the septic tanks to the polishing point, how it is working. We also did an environmental analysis to which guided us in the stacking of the blocks, the heights and the courtyard sizes. Then this is the building plan, which shows my mix of the different income groups. Like these are the two EWS units, the LIG units, the HIG duplex units, and all in one floor plate, so that there is no discrimination or distinction between the different types of the user groups. We also did the structural analysis and also went through the architect studio companion, the NBC, to find out what will be the various beam, column, and the shear wall sizes for our housing project during the design development semester. We also made the framing plans for the same, wrote, found the calculated the column sizes and all. Uh, then through the shading device analysis, I also decided to use the different types of shading devices like the vertical aluminum louvers on the west facade, the vertical aluminum fins on the east facade, the ferro cement boxes on the south facade, and also during the semester we created bulk mass models to uh, do the various design iterations and to come up with the final one. So in my first design iteration, there was no central greens, there was no wetland system in the central green spine. So later I incorporated that so as to give a centralized wastewater management technique to the entire township. And this is the design iteration too, in which I created a skywalk that could be used as a community space, and it connects to all the building blocks at the second floor level. These are various views of the model which show how these scoops and terraces are being formed within the building blocks. This is the view of the courtyard landscaping. This is the view of the narrow walkways that are created along the stilled floors of the housing. They also have the seating and the gathering spaces, which could then be used as the community spaces, uh, promoting the public realm as a more active and a vibrant space. This is the view of the housing from the boardwalk or the cycle track that runs along the central green spine. And this is the view of the housing block from the peripheral road. This view also highlights the various scoops and the terraces that I've created, which then gives a very unique identity to all the buildings. We also did the construction drawings and details for the same housing project, in which I developed the sections and also developed some of the details for the same. The detail of the joinery for the vertical aluminum louvers, the basement raft detail, the basement ventilation detail, and the staircase section detail. And then this was another project that we did in my elective. So this project had a very interesting design process. This project was to celebrate the two parallel disciplines of art and architecture together. This was the first we had to select an artwork. So I selected a painting by Emma Lambert, which is an example of abstract expressionism movement of art. Then there was an artwork of grids that was created. So from the primary grids, I created a pattern. And then including the secondary grids, this pattern was further enhanced and it was converted into a final artwork.
Yeah. 166, you've exceeded your time. So I suggest you to scroll through while the jury panel asks you questions.
Okay. So this was the combination of the two artworks. And then
Not allowed to speak, just scroll through and the jury can ask you questions.
These are the essay writing contests that I do as extracurricular activities. Yeah. And these are some of my graphic works.
Professor Karun, would you want to start?
Yeah, thank you, 166. What struck me in your presentation is your stress on what you call as a sustainable architecture or green architecture, in which you are combining this your interest in the landscaping with its practical utility point of view. I think you must keep that interest alive in all the projects that you handle. And create more and more sustainable, more and more the architecture which goes to the nature and which tries to replace the harm that we do to the nature, right? So the only point, it's a very controversial point is of mixing HIG, MIG and LIG all units on a one floor plate. That's a little debatable point from many different angles, not only financial disparity. There are social angles also. So perhaps you would like to know more about it in your further works. As I say, it is a debatable angle. This socialistic view is so far has not yet gelled with our the larger populace. So keep that interest in sustainable green architecture alive. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, that was a great presentation, number 166. I like how you are so inclined towards landscape and so passionate about talking about species of trees and going into that depth, keeping it native, thereby low maintenance and responsive to the local climate. I really like that. I like that even though it is a housing project, your major feature was this bioswale, these connecting passages. Just one comment on the master plan was, I don't know, maybe there were other limitations, or whatever, but you have a separate commercial block and then you have the whole chunk of apartments. Maybe in practicality for making things more accessible or things, could the big commercial chunk kind of be broken into smaller segments, thereby everyone can connect to it within a shorter radius, even for people walking, older people, things like that. It just becomes more friendly to have something downstairs, for example. But I know, I mean, there are both kinds of development, so that is also a very debatable thing in itself. Well done, and good to know that you are into writing as well. I wish we had the time to hear you out on that, but all the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
I liked your graphic design, and I liked how you derived that artwork into the the play area, for the kids. So I like that how you tried to transform the artwork into actually this built area. As far as the architecture project was concerned, I did appreciate that you're interested in the landscaping, creating biosquares to reduce the main stormwater gutter lines, and actually using these plans to recharge the groundwater. I like the community spaces that you were trying to create, or the punches in the building to break down the monotony of the mass. But at the same time, I felt that that could be taken up a little further, because the terrace linking, because you gave importance to the community spaces, even at the terrace level, there was a potential to, connect the buildings through sky bridges or greenery. And I mean, maybe adding more greenery on the built mass, because Abibi built mass was looking a little heavier to me. I felt there was more potential to break that down further through landscaping or terraces. But other than that, I mean, I think it's been a very good attempt.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. With that, you can leave the room, and I'll invite number 82 as the fifth presenter of the day. You can share your screen already.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you can go full screen.
So very good afternoon to the respected jury panel present here today. It gives me immense honor to have got this opportunity to present my work in front of you all. So talking about my academic work and my progress as an architecture student in the third year itself was something new and different that happened, because the entire world was struck under a pandemic and we experienced the entire third year within that pandemic. So it was a new learning stone and a milestone that we all crossed together. So as I mentioned in the quote by Rabindranath Tagore, got on my first slide itself is that where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way. So irrespective of the changes that have come across, what I tried doing as an architecture student and tried doing as a designer primarily was to understand my design sensibilities as an individual through the course of the semester, and which I hope you all will also be able to see in the academic progress that I'll show in the further presentation down. So the one subject that I like to begin with, wherein maximum amount of ideation, articulation, and expression, underwent, was the architecture design studio. The first brief that I dealt with was a public library for the 21st century in a very dense urban context of Mumbai. So before understanding what the library should be and how it should be, I thought about going with a process self-developed about how the library should exist in an urban context like Mumbai, and how important is it for a library to thrive in such an environment. So building an ethos for the library with certain kind of principles, at the same time understanding certain design principles and how these two concepts would work hand in hand was some experimentations that I undertook as a process of the initial phase of design. Which further led me down to narrowing it down to a site in Bandra, Mumbai. With that, understanding the importance and the iconic context that it had, what became important is that how would the library building sit in such a context? So understanding the different parameters of accessibility, massing, landscape, and how these three important factors would work hand in hand to curate, articulate spaces for the user, end user who will be visiting the library and experiencing the joy of reading in such a space. So, which brings me down to the planning, the master plan of the library, which, to give it that kind of an importance for different spaces, a spatial hierarchy in a very symmetric geometry was followed. And actual planning was used, which creates several amount of experiences right from the point of entrance to the point of reaching the end point in the library, the core reading zone, to the back, the back open space of the library. The whole actual planning allows a user to stop at several pause points, at the same time visit different sections of the library on the way going to the different zones in the library. What also is peculiar about the planning and was cautiously done was how each space could easily sprawl into open areas and allows that user to have that free access into outdoors and the indoors, and that also builds the conversation between the built and the unbuilt. Moving on to the sections of the library which try and depict the kind of principles that I wanted to disclose in terms of the library and how it should exist. So designing spaces for a user to have from open porous spaces to semi-open spaces to encompass spaces to finally enclosed spaces was the whole attempt made. And this entire journey is very experiential for a user coming to a library. Along with that, how does the monumentality impact this library? Because it being in a prominent iconic location of Mumbai, I thought that a 21st century library should also have its own iconic nature, and yet it should act functionally. At the same time, it should serve its purpose of providing knowledge and becoming that reading hub and a public forum. So that brings me to the spatial experimentation done at the process of deriving the design. Lastly, moving on to, while concluding the library design as a project, briefly, I would like to talk about the whole intent of this library was that how could the experience of reading for a user coming become sensitive towards the reader. So how could these open spaces get merged into the inbuilt form wherein the books are kept? So not segregating the sections of the library to the outdoor spaces. Why not integrate them was a conscious attempt done over here. And that's what I tried reflecting in this entire section with these punctures and voids that constantly keep happening through the built mass. So the entire monumentality is kind of balanced out with its open surroundings. The next brief and an interesting subject that we dealt with was an art institute, again in the context of Mumbai. So each student over here had to pick an art form very particular to his or her likings, or that he or her feels important. So the art form that I had selected was a music school. First, having personal interest and inclination towards music, I thought of why not understand it much better. So before deriving what kind of an architecture do I want to develop, I thought of understanding what music is to me is what I've depicted in the first graphic on the top right. At the same time, what I analyzed and understood from music is that it is a medium through which the body, mind, and soul communicate. At the same time, what I felt is that architecture as a principle also communicates at multiple levels with an individual. So I thought that if these two kind of art forms come together and are merged harmoniously, so how does the end user get impacted, or is can make the benefit out of this harmonious blend that comes in terms of an architecture space? Another attempt made in this particular semester, that is the Sem 6, was to have a more methodical approach in terms of planning and zoning. So I went about making several proximity diagrams of different spaces, which gave me that rationale of why a space should be next to another space, and that kind of helped me in understanding the zoning of the entire academic block as well as the campus on the whole. Along with understanding where and what should come on the site being a contour site, helped me understand how contours are to be studied. So a thorough analysis of the climatic aspects along with design strategies was done to, make it fit to the kind of art form that I'm looking at, the functional aspect, at the same time making it, feasible for construction. So moving on to give you just glimpse of the overall master plan of the library. So there are three major zones in the campus. That is, one becomes the auditorium for professional use, a public plaza in the center, and the academic block that is there. Each have its own separate access points. At the same time, they can be inter-accessed within the campus. So that in-betweens have also been taken care of. So while designing, as I mentioned, on the topography of the site, what becomes important is, other than placing just the blocks on the site, how would I deal with the in-betweens was also what I tried studying in this particular semester and trying and implementing it in the design. Further, at the process of design, what also helped me is making several cut level plans to understand different blocks sitting on different levels. And that also gives a hint of how the contours have been used along the design process. An overview over the different of the academic block of how the different studios have been planned with certain amount of geometry based fit to need to different kind of music sessions that have to be adhered in this particular institute. A common congregation space which is open to the sky that and is in vast and expanse, so that gives the kind of congregation for a large number of students to accumulate. And being at a music school, a lot of jamming sessions and all were intended, so that space could be used for the same. Lastly, understanding being at a music school functionality also becomes important. So selection of the materials, designing of the studios, the ratios of the studios to its proportionality was all taken into consideration and accordingly designed. So the first are the sections for the studio spaces. The second becomes the exhibition halls. And the third one is the recording sessions and the acoustic centers that they have in the music school. Lastly, what I also felt important being at a campus, as I mentioned, the in-betweens. So how would I deal with the in-betweens was by using a lot of landscape features and principles that we understood. And that's how I went about this. Yeah. Lastly, continuing the topic of landscape brings me to the landscape studio, wherein landscape design, firstly, I spoke about, I dealt with a landscape tale, decoding landscapes of the wetlands. So a storyboard was made for the same. Along with, in conjunction to the AD semester 6, understanding terrain analysis was also fit into the landscape studio. So understanding from this was used in the AD, so that it helped that interrelation between subjects for me to understand and design better. Another interesting subject or a design that was taken was understanding urban lost spaces and how we could rejuvenate them. So this was one such example of CBD Belapur and how we could rejuvenate the mangrove lost jetty that is there, which is lost between mangrove dense growth. So how could we could rejuvenate and make it into a public interactive space was the whole attempt. What also becomes important is understanding the different technical aspects. So working drawings were done for a residential building, but what I went as a step ahead was to not just staying standard to the standard details, but going a step forward and designing further canopies, entrance canopies, metal staircases, and understanding details and how it could be done. As an extension to myself, what I very firmly believe are the different extracurriculars that I delve into. So this is like a journey through all of that, be it in the new normal designing using shipment containers or taking part in a volunteer service for the local municipal authority to beautify a public garden along with the faculty members of my college. Was an attempt that I had taken during the period of lockdown. This is my take on Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities that I had read about in a graphical representation manner. So understanding urban features in terms of architecture fiction was an interesting approach taken. What also I'm proud of to present is different editorial works that I was a part of and was making the most of lockdown, was making ebooks and launching them along with my classmates, obviously. But leading these two teams was something that I thoroughly enjoyed and an intensive process undertaken. A few other graphics that I had come across, installations that I had proposed, and competitions that I had taken part in. Lastly, I would like to end with a personal high of a memoir into my personal insights. What I exactly like, other than architecture, is seeing the world in my lens, and that's how I would like to end this presentation, by talking about how art, expression, and me, we are all intertwined, and I like to enjoy each and every bit. So I hope you also enjoy the journey along with me, and thank you.
Thanks, 82, bang on time. And over to our jury panel. Architect Sheetal, would you want to go first this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
thanks.
I really like the last slide actually. Your expression through through your eyes. I mean, that's good. I also appreciate what you've done during the COVID time, the editorials and all. Very impressive and really good. I mean, making the this thing available, the data available. That's really nice. In terms of the library, I mean the idea that yes, it needs to be monumental, but at the same time functional and creating those interesting spaces for students to be. That was interesting thought, and the way you tried to design around that thought, that I appreciated. I think it overall, I mean, if I look at the overall thing, it's very interesting, very impressive, and a lot of different diverse things that you've done, which makes it a great portfolio. Yeah.
Thank you.
Number 82 is a great presentation, and I really enjoyed your illustration works, especially the comic strips that you had created to send the message across. I think it's a great way of communicating. I think there's no doubt that graphical communication does seem to be a strong point. So great going. Even this last slide, all these photo montages, they look really interesting and exciting. As for your architectural design projects, I saw those two masses for the library. There was this strip in between. What was that? Was that like a light well, or was it just
it was a light slit between two heavy masses and a passage underneath. So that built mass lets you towards a porous background of an open landscape design that was done behind. So it's like in between two masses.
Okay. And also for your art institute, the zoning study that you did, where you had that grid with the points, trying to understand what needs to come closer to what, I think that is taking the bubble diagram to a deeper level. And I think it's a good way to start, especially with projects which have a big set of functional requirements coming along. So great going, good job.
Thank you.
I really like your analysis of invisible cities, seen through a graphical, a graphical representation, which means that when you read, you are also, going over what is being read and try to interpret it in your own way, just like your lenses. So that's a very good train that you must keep up. If you can go to the section through that library where there was some triangular, go back. There was something which a little odd.
This one?
No. The previous one. Anyway, this pyramidal mass, you said these passages open up, but somehow I just could not get it right, where these those things coming from the sloping side inside, how they are reached and how do they open up, but it's okay. Another thing which with these two experts sitting with me is solar path analysis. The sun rising in the east and going in the west, everybody's plan. It's a mystery to me that why in the architectural school climatology is taken only from east to west and not through the real analysis solar path, the table showing these various angles. That's has always been a mystery to me. Why people, why students do this, and No, the faculty does not object to that. Anyway, great effort, and some of your graphical expressions are really nice. So keep it up. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
So very good, 82. With that, let's move on to the last presentation for this category. And 82 can leave the room, and 214 can start sharing your screen.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Go ahead and share.
Hello, ma'am. Is my screen visible?
It's still loading. It's white. It's blank white.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon, jury members and everyone. I'm glad to present my work over here. So I'll start with it. So Udaipur has a romance of setting unmatched in Rajasthan and arguably in all India. The city smuggling beside tranquil Lake Pachola with purple ridges of Aravalli ranges catching away in every direction. Its context and richness in the history serves a beautiful experience in any designer to design in this context. And I'm lucky enough to have a chance to design in this context in my budding years itself. We had a brief asking to training center for Hindustan Unilever, which gonna focus on grooming talent and skills of their employees. The ask from the academics perspective was need to consider context, climate, and material. And the major ask was that design must be effectively concerned about the climatic response. So the proposed site is located at Rana Pratap Nagar in Udaipur. The trapezoidal site with its short side facing the 9-meter road in the northern side, which is the main road of the city. The site is 3,250 square meter. Ayad River, streaming at the southern side, is the only river and is the only site view in the surrounding context. The total area encompassed with the enough existing green cover surrounding the site and within the site itself. As the elongated sides of the site facing east-west direction, the major part of the site is in the direct exposure of the sunlight. Southwest direction is the prominent wind direction. Royal Cenotaphs, museum, and temple are situated on the northern side of the site. Residential and commercial buildings are situated on the western side of the site. Ashram is situated on the eastern side of the site. The site has the main vehicular access from the north side itself. Its vicinity to facilities makes it more approachable for the user. Moving on to the climatic part, the summer season runs from mid-March to June and touches the temperature of 39 degrees Celsius. The scarcity amount of rainfall makes Udaipur more humid. The humidity reaches the extent of 90% during the months of monsoons. Monsoons arrive in the month of July, heralded by dust and thunderstorm. The city annually receives around 337 mm of rainfall. This was all about the site and its context, then the climatic analysis, the traditional and vernacular architecture of the city, the local arts and crafts, the economical background. I have considered while conceptualizing my design to get better idea all of this, I have done some case studies. So this is the case study of Bagori Ki Haveli. So here are some takeaways from that. As the orientation of the site itself serving challenge for the climate responsive, as the most of the site facing east-west direction, the major concern was the area elevation, which is going to get the direct exposure of the sunlight. During the case studies, I realized that the cluster planning is something I must look forward. You can have multiple shading spaces that can reduce direct exposure. Climate passive design strategies. First was the water bodies, which provide evaporative cooling. Courtyard, which act as a heat sink and cold air storage. Thermal mass, which absorbs the ambient heat. Cornices, projection used for shading, and the jali, which filters the air. Now let's come on to the planning part. After considering all the prerequisites and all the strategy that needs to be incorporated in the design, this is how the zoning was evolved. To provide the spaces with their own identity, I have categorized various spaces in 3 zones. First one was the institutional zone, second was the recreational, and third was the residential. Now, as you can see, the site plan, those 3 zones are separated by using landscape with linear patterns of trees. The huge entrance invites us to parking spaces. Further traveling, one reaches the institutional zone. Further traveling, one reaches the institutional block, having reception, waiting, and admin office. Further, which is connected with the back office and library. The another block has conference room, which is adjoined by 2 classrooms and a public toilet. Further moving on, in a site, in recreational block, we have step well design, which is an open amphitheater. These blocks also has a cafeteria and a indoor gym and indoor games area. Further, the residential zone, it has a hostel blocks, hostel accommodation, and a cottage. Also, I've created a sitting space, informal sitting place under the trees and a swimming pool. So this is the block of institutional block, which has this sitting also comes from the concept of step well. It has a downstep sitting. Further on, this is the admin office. Then this transitional spaces is created between the blocks. This is the conference block. Which is connected to classrooms. This is the recreational block, which has the open amphitheater. This is the cafeteria block. This is the indoor gym and indoor games. So moving on, this is the accommodation for 20 people. On ground floor, there are total 6 number of rooms, which has attached WC and a balcony. Each room has a separate balcony. In building services, we have learned about how water supply and drainage in the building is incorporated. So these are the services. We can see that this is the drainage layout. The network of IC chambers carries the waste through the STP and which is connected to a sewer line. This is the landscaping part. We have used native trees in the local context, which was tamarind, mango, and neem. So moving on, my second design, a study tour was organized for a rural settlement in a nearby village in Nasik Mohadi. After documenting and analyzing the village, crematorium design was introduced. These are the some pictures of existing site. The site is located in prime location of village, privileged with an ample amount of green cover. The first thought of designing a crematorium was to express a journey of one's life through my structure. That is considered as one end of everything, and people tend to fear the fact of death. That is not just a sad ceremony, but a parallel world. It is a beginning of a new journey. So this was the zoning, and this is the plan of the crematorium. This site area is 4,539 square meter in the south. It has a 9-meter wide road and a seasonal canal. To the northeast, surrounded by agriculture lands. Considering the mindsets of the users, spaces were arranged in such a way that they can easily approachable. The entrance of the site is through the pathway of light and shadow, making one experience like a transitional space with a bare view of a pyre, giving them a gaze of certainty. Every pyre has a respective waiting space and a ceremonial yard in a central space which can be easily accessible. These are different blocks, the admin and storeroom. In requirement, it was also given a canteen. So it was placed near the parking for easy accessibility. Also a meditation and a reading room. Okay, so this was it. This was the accumulation of my architectural experience in and around my city of tradition, reflecting through these designs. My interest in the traditional and vernacular architecture kept me motivated to design in those tough times of COVID. These designs gave me a better perspective to look at the practical and emotional prospect of life in a single semester. I'm thankful for everyone whom I grew up with this journey. Thank you, Joras, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks to 1-4, bang on time, almost, and over to the jury panel.
Yeah, shall I go first?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Mr. 214, I think, you just, you have seen, perhaps, I don't know whether you have seen the earlier presentations on YouTube or not, but, you followed a technique which is generally followed by the teachers when they teach to the students, that of explaining how the things are built up. In the jury, one is expected to, be presented with what is the, the punch of your learning,
Yes,
rather
yes.
than the process. So you wasted a lot of time in the initial sketches. I think next time you must improve on this particular technique.
Yes, sir, sure.
Where online techniques, we use this kind of a technique, line by line, telling the students how things are built up. Anyway, so that is something that you must, but otherwise you seem to have a lot of interest in the vernacular architecture, and you are trying to build up on that. So
Yes.
my best wishes for you on this journey. Don't lose that that connect with the traditional architecture, traditional methods of construction. But those methods of constructions, they thrive only in a particular culture. If you remove that culture and try to adopt it somewhere else, it just doesn't work. So there is a, and that is why vernacular has always remained vernacular. It has not become global. So keep that lesson also in mind. Okay. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, to one for the idea of taking us through the sketch. while it can be an interesting way of talking about it, but it was more for, you used it for site analysis. If it was for a story where you were quickly arriving at the crux of your design or something, could have still been a stronger point to use to take us through the journey in that way. Otherwise interesting, you also speak a lot about the local context, the climate, landscape, kind of trees to use. It's nice to see how you engage with the context that way. The design delivery presentation is interesting. You also seem to be more inclined towards this whole way of talking through videos, I think, with a starting video of Udaipur and the video of you sketching, and then there are these walkthroughs. So I think you like to go that dynamic way. So that's a good way, but try to see how you can capitalize on this way of presentation. It can really be used to your benefit. So use it as a strong point. And
yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, so I'll not repeat what the other jurors already said, and they captured it well, that, that time could have been utilized much better had you started with, not through the process, but actually, just the thought process. Now, I really liked what you did for the crematorium. I liked, the entire sense was captured well. And also that, trying to understand the concept, which was good, the context, as well as the sun direction, the climatology, which was captured well. But I felt in the first project that you did, it was just, so while it was good to have courtyards where buildings shade each other and all of that, but I thought you just kind of took everything as it is without, little more thought process was required. So it's good to have traditional, it's good to obviously understand the climate, but a little bit more effort was required, your own thoughts, just not kind of just taking something and putting it there. It felt, the first project felt like that. The second, the crematorium, there was a thought process, which and the way that you planned those fires and all, it was nice.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So with that, we've watched all the presentations of the 6 finalists. 214, you may now leave the meeting room, and Team NASA, we can stop broadcasting the session so that the jury can deliberate